Welcome back to Afternoon Live. From equity investments to mutual aid, our next guest wrote a playbook to help everyday people reclaim wealth and make a difference in their communities. We welcome the author of the Financial Activist Playbook, Jasmine Rashid. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Hannah.
Well, I love that you have everyday people right in the title, right? Because a lot of us think, okay, financial activism, I don't have that much money in the bank, so I can't make that big of a difference. But you know that's not true.
Right. Yeah, so the reason that I really wrote this book was to break down the myth that finance is just supposed to be something that only people who have degrees in finance or who work in the financial industry, because the truth is the financial industry is exclusionary and extractive by design.
Right.
And so I wanted to make something that is deeply accessible, also a little bit playful. That's why it's a playbook and not a textbook,
Yeah.
to help everyday people approach the ideas of how do we use money to actually fund the types of community wealth building that we deserve.
What's just a basic definition of financial activism for all of us to get an understanding?
Yeah, so I think about financial activism as all of the ways, big and small, that people can shift the flow of money and power to help build an economy that, again, actually works for everyday people.
Because we're all spending money every day.
Every day.
Whether we plan to or not, somehow it happens. So tell me about why it is important for all of us to have that in our thought process while we are spending our money all the time.
Yeah, so there's this idea that when we are moving through the world, like you said, so many of us are worried about how do we make ends meet? How do we build generational wealth?
Yeah.
At the same time, we don't want to contribute to an economy that we know isn't designed to serve everyday people. And so financial activism, and the reason why it's so important for all of us to do our part, is that no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And even the small momentum and the decisions around where we're spending or banking or investing have multiplier effects.
I know you have really practical solutions and ideas for people in the book. Are there baby steps we can start with if it feels overwhelming to begin?
Absolutely. So the first strategy that I always tell people is really just the power of talking about money. There is still so many taboos. Money is impolite to talk about, or it's just something that, you know, it's not necessarily encouraged. When in reality, when we don't talk about money and we don't have transparency around money, that's how things like wage theft perpetuate. That's how we have the growing racial wealth gap. So even just bringing in conversations about money and all of our big feelings about it into everyday conversations with friends, family, is a really good jump off point to help other people engage in the conversation as well.
How did you first get interested in all of this and then decide, hey, I'm gonna put everything that I've learned so far into this book?
Yeah, it's been a long journey, and I feel like I'm still figuring out all the convergence points. But you know, I grew up in New York in the suburbs, and my dad was actually a stockbroker on Wall Street. And so I had the in-house financial expert who I can ask all my silly money questions to. But I also had, you know, a confidant who I could say, it seems to me like how hard you work does not directly correlate to how much money you have, because I was surrounded in my working and middle class neighborhood by so many people who worked really hard but weren't accumulating wealth in the ways that I saw others. And so I was always deeply curious about our financial systems, who they were designed to serve, why, and what it actually contributes to society. And then I was able to study social movements in college and really understand how change happens at the societal level with the work of grassroots organizing.
Okay, well, and it seems like just for all of us as we move about the world, we can be really intentional about where exactly we spend money in terms of, I'm gonna make XYZ purchase, am I gonna make it here or there? And that's kind of a statement of its own sometimes.
Definitely. And you know, I think that not everyone is always going to be able to make 100% the most ethical choice, the most, you know, aligned choice. So I really encourage people to decrease their shame around their money decisions and really increase discernment, so that when you are in a place where you have extra cash to spend at a small local business instead of a big corporation, people can really see, especially at the local level, the multiplier effect that that has in the community's well-being.
What about just the way you communicate with people too, like using social media to amplify? Like you said, maybe I can't quite spend at this small local business all the time, but I can repost things for them and I can engage my community with that. Is that something that's helpful to do as well?
Absolutely. So my kind of entry into the world of financial activism as this like big theme was really around exposing the reality of big banks profiting from private prisons and immigrant detention, something we're seeing is very salient in the news right now. And so even just being able to draw awareness and follow the money around some of these big social issues helps put pressure on those bad actors to actually be accountable to the customers they serve.
Are there things we can do just locally, like here in the state of Oregon, that align with all of this?
Absolutely. So again, everything from just being able to talk about money with more transparency and less trauma and taboo around it, being able to be really conscious around where are you banking, where are you investing, whether it's your employer-sponsored 401k, and just asking questions about what am I actually investing in?
Sure.
What are my tax dollars doing? So often we, again, as everyday people, don't think we're qualified to ask those questions, but without asking questions, nothing is going to change.
Do you feel like younger people are becoming more open in talking about this stuff, and maybe me as an older person can be inspired by somebody a little bit younger and say, okay, I can have these conversations, and it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but it can be so helpful?
Yeah, so the data is showing us that there is a huge trend, especially among Gen Z and millennials, but particularly Gen Z, that they want to know what their dollars are doing in the world. They want to know where their clothing is being manufactured and how. They want to understand the brands that they engage with, are they actually, ethically and sustainably sourcing their products? And so, I think there's a lot to learn from the vocal nature of Gen Z, the curiosity and the connectivity that all of us can learn from, and their buying power is only going to continue increasing.
Right. Well, it's just so nice that we do have so much more access to that information, and we can make a more informed decision at the end of the day too.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
I want to let everyone know that you have a couple of things coming up. So Jasmine has a book event tonight at 7 p.m. at Powell's City of Books on West Burnside. She also has a free workshop and panel tomorrow at 9 a.m. at Meyer Memorial Trust. We'll put all those details for you on our website. Again, her book is the Financial Activist Playbook. For more information, just head to katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.